Hello, thanks for joining me today. Today we'll take a look at the military tactic known as envelopment, or commonly known as pincer movement. This is what the Russians are using on the Eastern Front in Ukraine, and we're seeing it more and more, but for historical context, they've been using it for centuries. Most recently, they used it in the Battle of Stalingrad, but it's not necessarily a Russian tactic per se. Alexander the Great used it successfully against the Persians in the Battle of Guagamela. That was 300 BC, so that was roughly 2,400 years ago. Most notably, the Soviet Union used this tactic against invading German forces in the Battle of Stalingrad. And we'll examine this in a bit. So here you have notable examples from ancient and recent history, and what we're seeing is that on the Eastern Front, Russian forces are using this more and more because the AFU are letting them. This is not to denigrate Ukrainian forces, but simply to emphasize the importance of knowing the basic tenets of operational design. These operational design tenets have been employed throughout ancient and modern military history, and they are fundamental to any military operations plans. Bottom line up front, envelopment is a tactic that exploits the enemy's flanks rather than attacking head-on, and will lead to seizing objectives behind the enemy's defenses. Then by doing this, you give them nowhere to go. No egress whatsoever, and this allows the invading force to fix and destroy or capture enemy forces at will. So to start, let's look at today's deep state map, and it doesn't take long to spot an active envelopment being executed by Russian forces along the Eastern Front. Here, very obviously, at Novosilka, further south about 50 kilometers in Donetsk, south of Pokrovsk, the town of Novosilka is being enveloped, and as you can see, the possibility of egress for AFU forces is closing fast. I would expect this to be closed completely by the end of the week, if not sooner. Then if we go up north into Donetsk near Chasiv Yar, we can see that Chasiv Yar has been taken, but now they are using Chasiv Yar to launch and envelop Shevchenko. Russian forces from the 2nd Combined Arms Army are not attacking Shevchenko directly, but instead they're following this road which will allow them to envelop Shevchenko. Now, Pokrovsk is the prize. Pokrovsk is a big deal because it's a logistics hub with a convergence of highways and a major rail transfer point, or RTP, at its city center. Once Russians seize Pokrovsk, a ground line of communication, or GLOC, will be disabled for Ukrainian forces. You can start to see that the Russians are beginning an envelopment of Pokrovsk now. It's taking a while to execute as Pokrovsk is heavily defended, but you certainly can see that this is happening. It seems to me that this is only a matter of time. Why? Because Russia is executing a war of attrition. They're struggling to man, but somehow they seem to be supplying forces more than Ukraine is. The Eastern Front continues to expand, and the Western media continues to downplay their advances because it's moving at a glacial pace, and I agree, it absolutely is. But they downplay this because they don't understand what a war of attrition is, and that's just my interpretation. Now let's take a look at how this has been used by Russians in modern military history. As I stated, in the Battle of Stalingrad, the Russians employed the tactic of envelopment as part of their deep operations strategy. They would purposefully attack German flanks and rear to surround and destroy large German formations. By 1943, the Russians became very adept at exploiting German weakness in their defenses, and this tactic of employing flanking maneuvers to envelop a formation became sort of their go-to maneuver that the Germans learned far too late in the war. By the Battle of Stalingrad, Soviet forces had flanked the German Sixth Army at Karpovka, which is just west of the German front line which ran along the Volga River. Russian forces from the northwest and the southeast swept in from the northwest and southeast and trapped the 6th German Army formation, eventually forcing them to surrender. The Russian tactics employed in Stalingrad changed the course of the war due to its strategic importance, as Stalingrad was an important transportation hub, just as Pokrovsk is in Ukraine today. The Russian victory at Stalingrad in World War II was so pivotal that it became a legacy of the Red Army and is even commemorated as a day of military honor in Russia. It is ingrained in Russian culture, as is this tactic. So while many analysts claim that military maneuver has become irrelevant on the modern battlefield, I would suggest that it has not. Military operational design is still fundamental to any military planning campaign, be it strategic, operational, or tactical. and should include the dynamic shifting of forces that are required to appropriately respond to adversary maneuver. So that will conclude today's short video. If so inclined, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'd like to thank you for watching this short video. Hope to see you back. Thanks again. See you next time.
What are your views?
Sir.
Yes, Grant.
I believe my brigade could take the town if given a free hand.
I must know what you propose.
To make a mounted charge against the eastern defences, sir. I have 2 regiments, the 4th and 12th, close at hand.
General Cheval, if there's to be a charge, then surely it must be made by my cavalry, who are armed with swords. Brigadier Grant's men are mounted infantry.
They are, Fitzgerald. We're constantly reminded of that fact. Hudson.
60,000 men have failed to take this town in 12 hours. How can 800 horsemen possibly succeed in less than 1 hour?
You don't believe they can do it?
No one has ever attempted a cavalry charge against entrenched infantry supported by machine guns and artillery. It's unheard of, sir.
Do you see any alternative in the time available?
Well, no, sir, but
Very well. Put Grant straight at it.